أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
وقالوا أإذا ضللنا في الأرض أإنا لفي خلق جديد بل هم بلقاء.
Alabama. Today I want to talk to specifically the parents about why me and my wife chose to take our kids to the lynching monument here in Montgomery, and why you should take your kids too. All right. First group of slaves came to the state of Alabama. There's always been a lynching. However, the lynching became its worst after the Civil War, because this was a time when blacks in this country began to prosper, and the whites of the South were very bitter because everything that they had, everything that they were worth, they lost as a consequence of the Civil War. And to see the blacks beginning to establish themselves, this enraged the whites, who, created groups to go around and basically terrorize those blacks. And in later years, actually, my wife's grandfather was one of those blacks that they tried to terrorize because he had acquired a massive amount of land in the area where he lived at. They killed his hogs, they killed his cows, they killed his animals, and I have great respect for her grandfather, even though I never met him. The Legacy Museum, which is like one of the offshoots of the Lynching Monument, there was an exhibit there. Part of the exhibit was from lynching to mass incarceration. I've never been lynched. I've had people in my family who were lynched. I remember when I first moved to Mobile, one of the first stories that I heard about Mobile was the story of Michael Donald, who was lynched by the Ku Klux Klan right there in the hood. And, coming from California and hearing that happening in Mobile, I ain't gonna lie, it put a lot of fear and mixed feelings into my heart that stayed with me even unto this day. Because there were many times that I walked past the street where Michael Donald was hung. I wanted to see the tree. I wanted to see the vacant lot that he was hung in. And I mean, just the thought of that as a kid, growing up in the South, coming from LA, it damaged me. One of the reasons why I felt like it was important for the kids to go is basically to see something that they can touch, something that they can smell, something that would leave a physical impression on them.
فلا تعلم نفس ما أخفي لهم من قرة أعين جزاء بما كانوا يعملون.
America has not always been the way that it is. for the better or for the worse. And I wanted them to basically get that feeling deep down in their soul of who they are, who we are as a people, and that we can overcome anything that life throw at us.
بما كانوا يعملون وأما الذين فسقوا فمأواهم النار.
Well, one of the first things that I noticed when we came through the gate is that there was actually more white people at the lynching monument than there were blacks. I had mixed feelings about it because I felt like, why are they here? You know, the nerve of these people to come here, you know. But as I thought about it, yes, I want you to bring your grandchildren here. I wish that every last one of the little monuments was literally dripping in blood to leave an impression psychologically on the next generation of white Americans to know that what your ancestors did was a violation of humanity. This was one of the most savage acts ever in human history on a mass scale, and that is still going on today.
So obviously, you know, it's an emotional topic. But how does it, you have a vast knowledge of history here in the U.S. when it comes to injustices that were done to our people and other people of color. How do you feel about the Caucasians that were walking with us during the movement and before the movement, even in the Civil War era and before then, who lost their lives also to lynching? Because it wasn't just us.
Well, what I have to say about that is this. No matter what country you go to, no matter what ethnic group you go among, there will always be among that group people who are inspired by God to advocate humanity, okay? And it's my belief that although there were some who came into the movement with ill intentions or other motives, but there were a small group of, you know, white people who knew in their soul it was just the taqwa in them. Even though they may not have had Muslim names, but it was just the Muslim nature that was in them, even if it was just a small percent, that knew that what their brothers and sisters, their white brothers and sisters were doing in America was wrong. It was absolutely wrong. It was no excuse for it.
In general,
How does it make me feel about white people today? For the most part, due to my own experience, I look at them with a skeptical eye. However, I do know and I acknowledge that there are people among the white race who, like I say, they are that small percentage that have the fear of God in them. I believe in God. I believe in Allah. So I believe that every child that is born into this world is born a Muslim. But it's their parents and the environment that they grow up in that make them anything other than a Muslim.
African Americans can be racist towards white Americans.
Of course, we see that a lot. However, there's a difference between outright hate and evil and a justified skepticism. And I think for the most part that's what most blacks in this country feel towards the white race. You know, you got to think about what happened to us, man. And I mean, if you was to do that to a person now, they'll say, well, that person needs psychological treatment. They need to heal. We never had a chance to heal from that. We went from being hung in trees to locked in a prison cell for reasons that to this day we still don't understand.
Over into our Islam, you know, we live in a country with so much racial tension, especially now with Trump in office. Trump, sorry. But how does that carry over into your Islam? Because, you know, we have racism amongst Muslims, we have reverse racism, we have oppression. I mean, the list goes on and on. Even as far as discrimination against reverts to Islam. How does it all tie into the psyche?
I believe, as a Muslim, and one who believes in Islam, one who believes in the oneness of Allah, and all of his prophets, not just Prophet Muhammad, but all of his prophets and all of his books. I believe that since the beginning of the human problem, there's always been a form of discrimination, there's always been a form of injustice, and there's always been a form of racism and tribalism. However, when we look at the content of the books that Allah has revealed and the message that his messengers brought, they all brought a program that was a solution to whatever problems were going on in the society. I believe that as the Quran is the last book revealed to mankind, there will be no more prophets. That inside of this book, there's the solution to every problem that we encounter in America. The first time that I read the book Roots, I was a teenager locked in prison. And inside of me, it caused so much anger and bitterness and rage. It took time for me to learn how to balance all of this new information out and how to use it in a beneficial way now in the future. So quite naturally, I know that this left a very, very significant dilemma on their mind. But it's going to take time, and that's why I suggest anybody who take their children, and I recommend everybody in America take their children to the lynching monument. But when you take the children there, it have to be a time after the experience, that now is the time to sit down and talk with your kids, even talk with adults. Let's have a discussion about this, because this is one of the things that's hunting America, because it's never been addressed. And it's time to address this if we plan to move on together in the future.
وهو الذي جعل الليل والنهار خلفة لمن أراد أن يذكر أو أراد شكورا وعباد الرحمن الذين يمشون على الأرض هونا وإذا خاطبهم الجاهلون قالوا سلاما والذين يبيتون لربهم سجدا